What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a football Saturday edition of Back Your Play with Q, hashtag BYP on the YouTube channel at Rich Q on Q. And of course, all of social media platforms were brought to you by our very good friends over at Play It Again Sports. Listen, they're buying used items, baseball, basketball, football, hockey gear. They'll pay you on the spot. It's the only place right now paying you right on the spot for golf. And also for baseball bats and baseball gloves. They got high tier golf drivers, wedges, you name it. They got it in-store shopping, out-store to pick up. Go online and just punch in playitagainsports.com, location New Jersey, and mention you heard it right here on BYP with Q. You get an extra 10% added to your buy or take 10% off your next entire order. With that being said, we are already week 5 underway in the NFL. Lloyd Vance, our NFL guru, kind enough to join us. Also the host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on 1029 The Game, and of course, Broad Street South Network. On a Saturday, my friend, the leaves are coming down, starting to get a little chilly out, a little hot toddy weather, and here we go. Thursday night football. Ugh, we get ready for week 5, but we'll run through the gamut. How are you?
Oh, doing great. It's that time of year, man. It's football time. And
Yeah.
I know it's Red October here where I am in Philadelphia. Everybody's talking about baseball, but, to me, football's always on the front page.
Yeah, 100%, man. So Thursday night football, and it was funny because I had the prop on Thursday, and he said, "Listen, hammer Chicago." He liked Chicago in this spot. They were 6-point dog. They easily covered. If you hit the money line, great. But they blew out Washington. They finally get the first one. But now there's a lot of talk in Washington. What's going on with the offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy? What's going on with the defensive coordinator? What's going on with the head coach? I feel as though this is kind of like this song that we've heard in rotation over and over and over with Washington and Ron Rivera. You take away that 15-1 campaign with Carolina a couple of years ago where Newton was the MVP. I think that was 2015. This Ron Rivera is just an average at best head coach, and you're wondering, yeah, that kind of clunker the other night, Thursday night football in front of new ownership group. That's a bad look for Washington.
Yeah, Q, they came into this one, as you said, a 6-point home favorite, and they just got the doors blown off from the jump, and when you look at Chicago, you say, okay, maybe they were trying to turn this thing around, and Luke Getsy, their offense coordinator, may be designing some plays specifically for Justin Fields. It was a good win for Chicago. They snapped a 14-game losing streak, which was formerly the longest in the NFL, and um, they they did many things well in terms of just moving the football and just dominating from jump. It was 27-3 at the half. So,
Yeah.
you're like at that certain point, you're like, okay, this thing's over. And as you kind of alluded to, it became a bad watch. And Washington, this is 3 straight losses for them. They were 2-0, and we talked about 2-0 teams, all of them made playoffs last year, but the way this team is kind of descending and backtracking, I just don't think they're going to be able to do it. And when you look at it offensively, a lot has to do with that offensive line. Hal, he threw the ball 51 times for 388 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, but he was sacked 5 times. So he
Mm.
was under constant pressure from a Bears defense. Let's face it, we've kind of been laughing at them all season.
Yep.
So this is not the 85 Bears that they were playing. And they just could not stop that pressure. And then in terms of the other side of the ball, they could not stop Justin Fields. I know we were killing him a couple weeks ago, but
Yeah.
he seems to finally found his rhythm. 15 to 29, 282 yards, 4 touchdowns for the second week in a row, no interceptions. Yeah, he was sacked 3 times, but he's also having these design runs that I think really help him out. He had 11 rushes for 57 yards, and he was moving the sticks. So he had 6 first downs when he ran the ball. So very good effort for Chicago Bears, and we'll kind of have to see where this team goes from there. But I do agree with you that Washington looks like they're in some trouble. You're wondering who's in charge there, and the big thing, though, Q, is you had Joshua Harris, the new owner, in the box watching the whole thing, and what's he going to do about the situation?
Yeah, and the Bears turned around. They got rid of disgruntled wide receiver. I mean, the kid just doesn't get it. Chase Claypool. They jettisoned him to Miami. If you want to say a bag of riches for the Dolphins, who, by the way, are laying 12 and a half at home against the Giants, who are coming off a poor performance against Seattle, issues with the offensive line, Evan Neal making comments. To me, this is a game where Saquon Barkley has to play. I'm sorry. Like it's getting to the point now where I'm not going to say Saquon Barkley is a bust, because when he's out on the field, he's an exceptional player. He's arguably top 2, 3, 4, top 5 running back. We can agree in the NFL.
Yeah.
But the issue is that he misses way too much time. And you're talking about a player that's, I think, missed 24 games in his career already. I mean, he played 16 games his rookie year, outstanding, 13 the second year, missed 14 when he tore up his knee, the ankle injury following, comes back with 16. And he's already missed a handful this year. That's what happens when you're taking a running back top 5 in the NFL draft. The pick looks like a bust. When he's out on the field, he's an exceptional player, but they have no shot without him on the field, even though the offensive line is already banged up and they signed Justin Pugh and they're doing some more shuffling. And as I mentioned, Neil said what he had to say. And, I'm not going to crush the kid as like some other idiots and talking heads in New York are crushing the kid. I mean, it was a stupid thing to say. You don't poke the bear. You don't go after the fans. You don't do it in the New York market. You don't do it in Boston. You don't do it in Philly. He'll learn from it. But ultimately, Saquon has to play in this game. I mean, tape it up. I mean, if he can go, he's got to go. And you have to figure out a way to stop the bleeding here. Even if they lose this game, but they lose at 31-24 and show some inkling of life. He's supposed to be one of the leaders on this squad. At this point, you're looking at him saying, if you don't play and they lose a couple more games, the trade deadline is in late October, correct, in the NFL?
It's around November 1st, so it'll be after Halloween in a couple of weeks.
Then you would have to think about trading him. That's where I'm at right now with Saquon.
Yeah, well, Q, he's in his contract year this time. It's a 1-year deal, and it's kind of ironic. We talked all preseason about these running backs, and they were having their running back conference call and talking about, we should be paid and everything. And unfortunately, it's coming to fruition what these owners are talking about in terms of durability and availability with these running backs. Austin Eckler, who's also out and not been playing for the Chargers, and they've kind of moved forward without him. And then
Dalvin
you talk
Cook
about the
looks slow.
Dalvin Cook, he doesn't look right. The Jets are kind of like, okay, we're going to go Breece Hall pretty much as our lead back and have him there. And he's on a value contract. So you wonder, okay, is he going to be back? So, a lot of tough business decisions for these owners and general manager types. And they're kind of proven that, okay, these running backs, they're not what drives the team anymore. Yes, back in the 80s, the 90s, the Emmitt Smith type, they was what you built your team around. You had to have that quarterback. And I do agree with you that Saquon does have to, in order to help himself, he has to get back out on that field and play, well, because this Giants team, as we know, they're hurting. This is my survivor pool special. They're going down to Miami, and Miami coming off a loss, the very bad loss to Buffalo, and they want to wipe that taste out of their mouth. Miami is almost a 12-point favorite. And Tua, I think he's going to have a field day on that secondary that you constantly harped on. That's kind of young and kind of vulnerable. Tua averaging 9.6 yards per attempt, highest in the NFL. You cannot forget about Devon Achane. This young man is coming along. He's 309 yards rushing. He's averaging 11.4 yards per carry, which is incredible. So, I think Miami, they probably don't have Claypool in this one, but they're not going to need him. I think Hill's going to have a very big day. And the Giants, they're reeling, Q. So if they lose this one, they'll be 1-4. And you just wonder where they're going to be able to turn around. Daniel Jones obviously is the key. He only has 2 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and 1 lost fumble. So he's kind of going back to that turnover mentality that he had past. And you wonder, I know we talked about earlier in the week, are he and Daboll on the same page, because they kind of had that back and forth on the sidelines and not good optics. So tough situation for the Giants, but yes, they got to show some pride in this one, the whole unit, and it would start with Saquon, but I'm hearing he's very beat up and he may not play in this one.
And that's, listen, I mean, offensively, they can't do anything. I mean, Daniel Jones, once again, it's his legs. He has almost 180 yards
Yeah.
rushing, right? Miami, conversely, is averaging 6.3 yards a carry. Giants run defense, like who's going to step up? You know, Thibodeau. Is it going to be Williams? Is it going to be Lawrence? I mean, you're paying these guys, right? Someone has to stand out, and you need a game where Tua's off. You need a game where he throws that very rare, you know, two pick type of performance, which, you know, it's rare. He hasn't been touched. He's only been sacked 5 times. He gets rid of the ball so fast. So I'm wondering if Martindale is going to stack the box or actually, you know, at least have 2 or 3 extra defenders back there, or at least drop back a linebacker or two and coverage just to kind of clog the lanes. But offensively, I don't see the Giants moving the ball at all. And when they lose this game, because I think they will, you drop to 1-4, then you've got Buffalo 1-5. I mean, think about it. You take away that second half against Arizona, they can be staring down the barrel of an 0-6 start. Then all of a sudden, you're talking about the head coach, where I get it. He won Coach of the Year last year, but we've seen coaches get fired before. If you let everything kind of come to a head, you've got issues with the quarterback. You've got all these signings that haven't panned out thus far. You drafted the kid high. You brought in Campbell. You made the move for Waller. It hasn't worked out. So it's bad. They need to play competitive football. I don't expect them to win this game. I think maybe they can try to keep it close. But if they lose 38-6, then guess what? All bets are off. I mean, then you got to really start consider trading off some of these guys. And then you start to get in the conversation of, if they're really that bad and they finish 2-15, 3-14, you know, you get a #1 draft pick, or, you know, top 2 or 3. What are you going to do with it? That conversation's in April, but still.
Yeah, and we talked about the cyclical nature of the
Yeah.
Giants. You know, they have a great season, then they usually have a lull the next season, and that's where we seem to be right now. And Daboll's got to fix this thing, and Joe Shane's on the hot seat. He's general manager. He gave all those big contracts, and I know the Mariners are looking at this, but you know, it's an ugly situation, and it's not going to get easier because they
No.
have a tough schedule with that NFC East.
Listen, their best stretch when you go 05, 06, 07, 08, miss playoffs 9, 10, and then come back and win the Super Bowl in 11. You're talking about a 5 out of 7 year period, winning 2 Super Bowls in 5 years, aside from late 80s. Other than that, it's just feast or famine, or they missed the playoffs. Bills right now laying 5.5 against Jacksonville. That game's in London. Jacksonville basically hasn't even gotten on a plane. There's no reason to go back to the States, come back. They're 2-2. Buffalo, since that opening week loss to the Jets with the punt return in overtime, they've ripped off 3 in a row. The total is 48.5. Listen, I'm leaning towards Jacksonville covering this game because they're the more rested team as far as travel, but I still like the Bills to win this game. I think that offense is clicking on all cylinders right now.
It's interesting because, as you said, Jacksonville, you know, they've stayed there in London, and Buffalo. This is a home game for them, so they're losing a home game uh, coming over there. And the thing is, Josh Allen's looked totally different after week one. You know, we were killing week one with,
Yeah.
you know, is this the guy anymore? He has 11 combined touchdowns as rushing and passing the most in the NFL. And then defensively, I know the Bills are hurting. They have Russo's probably not going to play in this one. They lead the NFL in sacks with 16. So they can get a lot of pressure on a quarterback. When I look at Jacksonville, they're kind of up and down. You wonder, okay, which Trevor Lawrence is going to show up? You know, ATN has not done as well this season as you'd like. You know, Ridley started out real well, but they need to get him the ball more, and as well as Christian Kirk. So, but when I look at this, I think the Bills have finally turned a corner. Yes, it's a tough situation traveling over there and getting up for the game, but they may have a slow start. But I think the Bills win this one, and then they should cover that 5.5 points. That over is going to be interesting because I do expect some scoring in this one. So I think the Bills win this one, cover, and then watch for the over too.
I'm actually going the other direction. I think Jacksonville covers, but Buffalo wins it. Say it's a 30-24 type of game. I think Jacksonville is going to be able to move the ball a little bit. And as you mentioned, they got the benefit of already being over there. so they can rest a little bit. Not a game I want to spend too much time on, but interesting. New Orleans and New England, 2-2 Saints, 1-3 New England. They benched Mac Jones. People are sitting there saying, Belichick's under fire and this and that. I mean, the more I kind of take a step back and I kind of look at it, what are their options? Like, we're not saying in season, maybe after the season, who knows? I still believe he wants to continue to coach to beat Shula's record, but this game is pretty much a pick 'em right now. And I thought New Orleans, just because the division stinks, I was looking at New Orleans to win the division. That was kind of my rationale, right? And right now they're a 2-2 team. Um, both offenses, let's just say they're pretty dormant right about now. I was expecting more from Carr. I know he's been nicked up and banged up, but we talk about Daniel Jones only throwing 2 touchdown passes. Carr has 2 touchdown passes. And here's another thing. It's like he never left the Raiders. He's been sacked 13 times. I think this is a spot where New England has New Orleans kind of ripe for the picking, and I'm leaning towards New England at home, even though I don't like the quarterback.
Yeah, Q, and when I look at this one, I kind of agree with you because the Saints usually don't travel well. They play very well in the Dome down in New Orleans, and they have their crowd rocking there. And I think the Patriots will have enough in terms of defenses to get after Carr and have him make mistakes. As you said, Carr is struggling. He has that shoulder injury. You don't know how healthy he is. And last week, he only threw for 127 yards, and he had a lost fumble. And he just looked very bad against Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay's defense is kind of average. I think New England's is better than that. New England obviously is going to miss Judon, who has the biceps injury, and that's going to kind of hurt them. But I think the Saints' offensive line, particularly Trevor Penning, their left tackle, who's not playing well, he's struggling. You're going to be able to get some pressure around him, and Belichick will design some situations to get that pressure, and then have Carr make some mistakes behind him. So I do agree with you that the Patriots will win this one. It'll probably be a close game, probably a field goal situation, and I think it's a situation where Belichick says, "Okay, enough's enough. We got to keep competing, and we got to get back in this race."
Saturday edition of BYP with Q. Rich Quinones is here. Lloyd Vance joining us as well. And as always, we're brought to you by our good friends over at Play It Again Sports. You've got the Eagles and the Rams. Interesting line here. Eagles laying 4 on the road. Cooper Kupp coming back. Look, you like to see that, but you also have a pretty hot rookie that's getting a lot of reps and catching a lot of balls for the Rams. A lot of people expected the Rams to be a very good team this year. I thought they were kind of done after last year, but a little resurgence, if you will. Eagles 4-0. They have not put forth that 60-minute game, right? That complete effort that we've been accustomed to. It's almost like Georgia in college. They're beating teams, but we really haven't seen that marquee signature kind of blowout type of win. I don't think they get it this weekend as well. And listen, they're laying 4 on the road. Part of me actually thinks this is a tough spot for the Eagles. I think the Rams keep this game relatively close. Now, they got to do 2 things. Got to keep the quarterback upright. And I think they'll be able to throw a little bit on that Eagles secondary. We saw last week, Washington was able to do that with a modern of success with Sam Howell. And I think you also have to limit the Eagles' possessions. You've got to get a couple turnovers if you're the Rams in this game. You have to force 3 and out. You can't let Eagles go down for some of these sustained drives. But with the total at 50.5, I think it goes over. I think we're going to see points. But I like the Rams covering, but I like the Eagles winning.
Interesting. Yeah, when I saw this one, I see a 4.5-point home dog in the Rams, and you have an Eagles team that's stacking W's, but it's no style points. So they can't fly across the country and forget that they have a football game to play, and it should be a business trip. So when I look at the Rams, they are getting healthy, and Stafford, he's overcome that hip injury, and he's getting the ball down the field. Williams is playing very well in the backfield for him, their young running back. 245 yards, 5 touchdowns. And I just think the Eagles secondary, as you said, is right for the picking. If Kupp can play in this game, and Puka Nacua and Higbee, the tight end, I think they have enough weapons to kind of spread the Eagles out and score some points this one. So I'm going to go with the shocker, and I'll go with the Rams outright in this one. I think the Eagles are due for a loss, and then they can kind of regroup from there. But I think that secondary is just not good enough to cover all those weapons.
Interesting insight. They've got the Jets coming up and then Miami, Washington, and Dallas. So if you're going to stub your toe, I guess you might as well try to get rid of it, get it out of the way now. Kansas City, 3.5 point road favorite against my guy, Captain Kirk, Minnesota. They're 1-3. Cousins has not played poorly. If they figure out a way, if they were to find a way to win this game, Minnesota, and get to 2-3, then I think the conversation of, you got to trade, as crazy as it sounds, you got to trade Jefferson, you got to trade Cousins, you got to just rip it apart and rebuild, because that's kind of what people are saying out there right now. If they get blown out, you have the conversation with Cousins, because I still believe there's a team out there, Kirk Cousins, top 15 quarterback. But that being said, I'm not overly impressed with Kansas City so far. I think we watch this team and they can just turn it on and off whenever they want. And that may be the case. But I get the sense that Mahomes at times is a little too arrogant, right, with the football. I feel as though I can make he's an all-time great. He's in the Hall of Fame. He's a great quarterback. There's no mistaking that. But when I watch this team play, when their offense kind of goes south, it goes south a little bit, even though they figure out a way to make it ugly and win some games. When the offense is clicking like Miami and Buffalo and to Philly some extent like last year, the offense clicks big time. Now, the Vikings have never lost to Patrick Mahomes, but they've also never played against him either. So with that being said, it's 3.5 Kansas City. Do you give Minnesota a puncher's chance in this one?
You always give punchers chance. The thing that if you're a Minnesota fan, it's kind of scary though, is Kirk Cousins. And yes, he has 11 touchdowns, but he has 5 interceptions and he has 3 lost fumbles. So, I think Chris Jones and if Bolton, if he plays, that defense is going to be able to get after him. Spagnola's going to be able to dial some things up and get some pressure on Cousins, and he's going to make some mistakes. I just don't think the Chiefs are as bad as they looked last week, particularly Mahomes. As you said, he looks very far like when he like, no, what are you doing there? And he got away with it against the Jets. I think he's kind of starting to get on the same page with some of those receivers. And then Kelsey, we'll see if Taylor Swift's there. But I think Kelsey's probably going to have a big game in this one because that Vikings defense is vulnerable in the middle. And you can't forget about Pacheco. He's really run the ball well, averaging 4.9 yards per carry. So I look for the Chiefs to win this one and maybe closer than you think. I think they'll win it. That over is high, though, Q. It's 52.5 points. I think that's way too much.
Yeah, I tend to agree. But I also think Minnesota is going to have to score to win this game. I don't know, man. Cousins can go 30 of 35 for 288 and 3 touchdowns in that last drive. He's just had real bad, tip balls, late picks here and there. Marquee game of the weekend, Dallas and the 49ers. San Francisco made the move for Randy Gregory now, so maybe a reclamation project. 49ers are laying 4. They are at home. Dallas sits at 3-1. I think a lot of people are looking at this game where it could potentially be, dare I say it, a NFC championship preview. I'm not going to go that far just yet. I know the line's been fluctuating. I think it'll settle and sit at 3.5. It's tough because now you got the hook and people are a little weary of the hook. I just think, this is me, for my money, complete team, 60 minutes of football on both sides of the ball, the 49ers. They have a lot of depth. They've got a very good defensive line. They got a decent secondary. We know about their offensive line. We know about their running back. We know about their wide receivers. We know about the tight end. And we certainly know about the quarterback who just doesn't make mistakes. If this would be a big win for Dallas, right? Because they're trying to get over that San Francisco hurdle. Are they not? And I think if they win this game, they've kind of reminded, if that makes sense, reminded the NFL that they're still a very formidable opponent, formidable foe. But it always comes down to two things that make me worried with the Dallas Cowboys: the quarterback and the head coach. And I don't like them in this spot at all. And I don't even think this is going to be a close game. I think San Francisco wins this game by at least 7+.
And right away that they're going to bring out all the old Madden Summerall clips and Candlestick Park and the catch and everything. So this is an old rivalry game, and it's going to be fun to watch. Hopefully, the build up, and we don't have a stinker. I know Collinsworth's going to wax poetically about that on and on. So we'll have to see in this one, but I do tend to agree with you. Brock Purdy he's unsung, but he's playing very well. He leads the NFL in passer rating with 115.1. 4-0 this season as starter, and they've won 14 straight as a team in San Francisco. And then you have CMC, 459 yards and 6 touchdowns, more than any running back out there. I think you're right. That offense is just going to have a field day on that Dallas defense that's struggling. Yes, they have Micah Parsons. They're going to have to figure out the way to block him. They'll probably make sure that they're sliding Trent Williams over there. If Dallas is smart, they won't mind Parsons on Williams' side. But I do agree with you that Dak Prescott, when he's away from Dallas and in friendly confines of the Jerry Dome, he just does not play well. And this is a spot where you may see him crumble. And we saw in Arizona the difficulty that he has on the road. So I think that San Francisco will get that pressure with Steve Wilkes' defense, and you will see them probably win in a laugher. So I think San Francisco covers at 3.5, and they win this one going away.
So they covered easily against Arizona, hit the over at 44. The line was 15. They covered against the Giants. The line was 10.5, but they hit the under, think about it, 30-12, and it was 43.5. The Rams game, that was a tough game. That was a 7.5 where McVay kicked a friggin' field goal, right? And that screwed a lot of people, and they won by 7. And then they routed Pittsburgh to start the season, which, again, you look at that game and that kind of set the tone for the 49ers. I just think they're going to be able to get to Prescott. And I trust San Francisco's offense more. I'm not a believer. I'm not a believer in Prescott anymore. I think it's kind of run its course. This whole thing, well, now they got Trey Lance, and Trey Lance is going to sit there and give up secrets. I mean, for what? Of throwing picks? I mean, that's I think John Lynch said it's not like Houston banging the trash cans. He's not going to do that with the stealing the signals.
Yeah, they're not going to go with the same playbook.
No, of course not.
Please.
But how do you account for all the weapons that San Francisco has? Like Christian McCaffrey right now, and he should be front runner to win the MVP, but it typically goes to a quarterback, right? But his numbers, what he does out of the backfield, catching them. I mean, and here's another thing. You go back to that Giants game, they got running backs that run hard, tight ends that, they don't go down. Wide receivers, they don't go down. Now, if you want to attribute to shoddy tackling by the Giants, so be it. But they're a physical team. I don't think Dallas is as physical in San Francisco, and I think they win the line of scrimmage. But I just trust their offense more than I trust Prescott.
Yeah, the York family and John Lynch have done a great job compiling this team and this roster, and they have a culture there that they've established under Shanahan, and they got their quarterback Purdy, and we talk about this all the time. Purdy, they don't have to pay him right now because he was the last player paid in the draft. They're paying everybody else big money, and these guys are playing very well. They're loaded, as you said. No one even talks about Ayuk or Deebo Samuel. They're still on this team, and defensively, Fred Warner and that defense can get after people. So, and that Dallas offensive line is not what they used to be. Teron Smith and all those guys are getting older. They've had some flux at the center position.
Yep.
And they have CD Lamb, and they're going to have to keep an eye on him in the entire game. But there's not much else because Dak Prescott's throwing a lot of check down passes to Ferguson, their tight end, who's kind of a middle of the road guy. So I think Niners are going to be able to do their thing in this one, and they're the most complete team in the NFL, and they're going to show it.
Hey, before I let you get out of here, everyone's talking about the tush push with the Philadelphia Eagles in the 4th and 1, and they mocked the Giants for trying it. Listen, teams go for it on 4th and 1, whether it works or not. It's just the Eagles have been able to kind of perfect it. But I know there's a lot of thought of players get injured. the Giants center goes down, the tight end goes down. It's just the momentum. It's just how it is. And I'm wondering, look, it's been a very good play for Philly. Back in the day, it was get up to the line of scrimmage and boom. There's been 36 attempts through 4 weeks, up from 5 at this point in 2022. 4 teams are 0 for 1, but the overall success seems to be about 81%. So, it's not as automatic as you would think, but there's a level of success. Teams have been able to do it. It's extremely hard to stop, but when you watch it now, they're saying, look how some of the guards or the tackles are lining up. Like, I don't know how in the world you've got, the say, the Kelseys or the Lane Johnsons or how they time the snap so perfectly where it constantly looks like they're off sides and they move it. They move, and I guess it's different with Kelsey being a center, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. How they time it perfectly like this. I mean, do you think that the NFL, the selection committee, the rules committee will look at this and say that this is a scheme or a play that should be eliminated? Because the Eagles really run it well. I mean, they've run it really, really well. I mean, listen, you got to stop them, right? And then if you can't stop them, then stop complaining, right? Get a stop, and then maybe we won't have this.
And that's what I always talk about, with whether it's the Wildcat or any new thing out there. McDaniel in the Dolphins in the circular motion he does on pre-snap. You got to figure out a way as these defensive coordinators a way to stop this play. I think you're right, though. If there's a lot of injuries off of it, you just saw Justin Herbert break his hand on one of those plays. They will start looking at it more. As always, it's going to take 24 or more votes against it, and I just wonder, do enough teams say, okay, this is a danger and we got to take this out the game? One of these marquee quarterbacks really gets hurt on that play, or a defensive lineman, as you said, because you're seeing they showed the Eagles in slow motion. They're diving right at their ankles. I mean, it's legal to do, but if one of these guys, like say an Aaron Donald, gets hurt in the trenches at that, the spotlight's going to be on it and everybody's going to be talking about it. So unfortunately, it's going to take a big injury or something for them to outlaw this. But for this season, the Eagles will continue doing what they're calling here in Philly the brotherly shove. So they're going to do it, and a team's going to have to come in there and just stop it. And I think it may be somebody jumping over the top, a la, like an old LeVar Arrington or something like that, and hitting that quarterback or something. But it's definitely a play for the Eagles. It looks unstoppable at this point.
Yeah, no doubt. Good stuff with the final word. Lloyd Vance at Lloyd Vance. Don't forget, writer, researcher, historian, insider football with Lloyd Vance, part of the Broad Street South Podcast Network. And of course, 102.9 The Game, streaming online every Monday, 7 p.m. You can catch him Eastern time. And he's got some of the old shows up in the archives as well. So you just go to Broad Street South, click on demand, and you look for Lloyd's name as well. He's always kind enough to join us during the week. We'll do it again Tuesday when we do Vance's View, Game Balls, Lackey. We'll recap a week 5 already in the NFL, which, man, I'll tell you, the season for some teams, as Yogi Berra used to say, it's getting late early. And I can tell you this, if we come on the air Tuesday and the Giants are 1-4.
Oh, no. Pressure is going to be up. Remember the rant last week? We'll see. Hopefully it won't be as crazy.
It might be a little bit. So, as always, we're brought to you by our good friends over at Played Against Sports. As I mentioned, playedagainstsports.com. Just go online, check out the location, New Jersey, and they'll do the rest for you. All right, my friend, appreciate a couple moments. Enjoy college football and the NFL slate. We'll talk again on Tuesday.
All right, Chief. Thanks for having me on.